Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Safari Live. Lovely morning, watching all these impala crossing the clearing in front of us. A little bit cloudy, as you could see. It appears as if the rain is with us this morning. Not sure how long it's going to last, but my name is Byron, and with me on camera this morning is Viam, and then we've got Ali and Senzo on the other vehicle, and Fergs and Tristan in the tent, and of course Rebecca in the final control. Interesting evening. We heard lions calling last night. I think it would have been the Nkahuma Pride with the two males. So my plan is to try and find those lions this morning and see. Yesterday we left them. They did look hungry, and we saw tracks earlier of them that they had been hunting, but they weren't successful. So I think possibly we might have some luck today. Maybe we find them on a kill. But nice to see all these impala in the clearings around camp. Very nice open area, so it's perfect for them, for safety, of course. And don't forget, we are completely live, so send us your questions via Twitter. Hashtag Safari Live is how you do it, or in the comments box on the YouTube channel. And we'll gladly answer as many as we can. I'm going to head into that area where we heard the lions last night, see if we can get any sign of them. While I do that, let's go across to my friend Tristan, who's in the tent, and see what his plan is this morning.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome, yes, to the tent and not so sunny South Africa. As Byron mentioned, my name is Tristan, and on camera I have Ferg once again. So we are back in the tent for round 2, and the plan is for this morning, well, I'm not really sure, actually. I'm going to think about what I really want to do. I know some of you have asked for lion maps, so maybe we'll do some lion territory maps a little bit later when it gets a little lighter. But at this stage, I think what we'll do is maybe we'll address the fact that we found a very cool little discovery the other day, which I will show you shortly. Remember, we are coming to you live, and that means that you can ask many questions and you can talk to us and you can interact with us. And so you can do that on hashtag Safari Live or on the YouTube chat. It's still very dark outside. There's a bit of drizzle around, and so engaging with our outside environment is probably not going to be the best thing just yet. We did see a pair of eyes gazing at us not far away, which hopefully will be Tamba. I'm just hoping that. I don't think it is, but you never know. So while I kind of figure out what's actually going on around the tent and whip out my little surprise that I want to show you and our interesting discovery, I'm going to send you back to Ali so she can say good morning, and she's got a rather large surprise to show you as well.
Good morning, everyone. Large surprise indeed. We've managed to find a beautiful breeding herd of elephants that have been pretty much destroying the main road. They have left all of their tracks and everything else on the road itself. A lot of their dung, a lot of branches, and a lot of marula trees. My name is Ali, and on camera today with me is Senzo, and we are coming to you all the way from a very rainy morning all the way down here in South Africa. If you've got any questions or comments, please send them through using the hashtag Safari Live or using the YouTube chat. Now, it is wonderful to bump into all of these ellies because they were fairly active, and as we drove down into camp this morning, you could already see all their tracks and signs that they've left behind. So it's actually very nice to start the morning with such a large creature, and just as chilled as they are. I'm sure the food is a little bit tastier now because it's probably nice and refreshed, and it's not as dusty as it was the last few days. Now, I think we're looking at 2 youngsters over there, and the one that we were looking at, it's got a little small baby. Now, the baby is still in the bushes, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to see them. So we're going to wait. I'm sure they're going to end up crossing the road, so we'll manage perhaps to have a little bit of a view. I am, however, going to reverse slightly just so that we allow them a little bit more of space to reverse if they do decide to come our way. So I'm hoping that good old clutch reversing is going to work, just to give mom and little one a little bit more space. There we go. Haha, it worked. Hello, tiny one. Good morning. Look at that trunk. Oh, that is so sweet. Well, it's wonderful to start the morning with such sweet little elephant. Trying to master the use of his trunk, and I think it's trying to smell us. As you saw, he was putting up the trunk, and it almost seems like it doesn't really know that the trunk can go up straight. It was almost bent like a snake. It was quite funny, I would say. Hello. I would only assume that this little one is just a few weeks old, just judging by the amount of hair. Hello, big mama. Now she's crossing the road, so obviously they're very comfortable with their position here. They've shown no aggression to us, so we're going to carry on enjoying their company exactly where we are. Now I reverse when the little one was there with the mother, because sometimes when we've got tiny ones around, then you'll see that the parents become obviously protective of them. But for now, it seems like it's all good. Now, I feel like whatever is happening, it doesn't really know what it is. Okay, so you're a little boy. Hello, are you going to come and charge us already? You're only a few weeks old. No, you wouldn't. You're very sweet. And you can see the top of his head, very, very hairy still. So elephants, when they're born, when they're little, they still have very, I won't say thick, but they've got hair all over their head, their ears. It's a lot more prominent than when they're older. So as they start getting older, they start losing this thin layer of hair that they're born with. You can still see on top of his head, there's a lot of it. Oh. What you doing? I don't know if maybe it wants to try and eat, and perhaps finding the sand quite interesting. Not too sure how many rains you've seen, perhaps a few already. Now you see the mother in a protective way, and this is in general what elephants do. She's decided to put herself in between us and the elephant or the baby when they cross the road. So it's just for protection, just in case would do it with anybody else, and then should the little baby or the parents or any of the herd members see anything that they don't feel comfortable with, automatically they will go around a circle around the little one just to protect it. Now we've got a youngster full of nonsense. It's lovely to start the morning with elephants. It's definitely one of my favorite days to wake up, and I was feeling a little bit sleepy, but this definitely gave me a good shock of energy. Now you see this little one, still a little bit too young to start eating the leaves, and I think it will probably just be on milk for the next few months. And roughly when they're about, I would say, 3 months old, then they start feeding on the branches of the trees and the grass. But it takes them about a year to be able to handle their trunk. And if you're hearing that, is the rain that's coming down. It's quite a rainy morning today, and it's also been a tricky one because it starts raining, then it stops, and it starts raining again, and then it stops again. So I'm hoping that this is only going to last the next few minutes, the last few drops, and that's going to be it. Beautiful. Kristen, you're wondering how often do female elephants go into estrus or are able to breathe? Well, their calves are dependent on them until they're about 2 years old or so they will not breed for 2 years or so while they have their little calves. So when their little ones are about between 2 and 3, then they will mate. But because their gestation period is so long, about 22 months, then they only have like a calving interval of every 4 years or so, 4 to 5 years or so. So it's a mammoth task for the elephants, pun intended, because it's not really easy for them to raise their little ones or to have a baby that's about 100 kgs in your stomach for, well, not 22 months because they won't weigh that for 22 months, but I would imagine it's a very long time for being pregnant. And I haven't experienced it, but my friends that have been pregnant say that 22 months is too much. So I'm sure some of the other moms out there might be able to either confirm or deny this. I've got no experience on the matter. Now let's see what you guys are up to on this side of the road. And you see they're very dark. All of them are of a darker coloration than what they normally are. And this is obviously because of the rain. They've been out and about during the night, and as they've been moving, well, obviously the rain has been making them wet. Well, it hasn't been too much of a drizzle or too much of a rain. It did get quite windy at some point, according to Jared, which is our star tech guy. I didn't hear the wind, to be honest. I went to bed and I was so tired I completely missed it. But things like too much wind might make the Ellies to be a little bit on edge, as they don't enjoy the wind too much. Now, you guys need to sort of turn around so that we can have a better look at you. But there we go. So that's what the little one can aspire to do one day with its trunk. Just being able to put everything down and then just break it open. Now, I'm surprised you guys are not feeding on the marulas, but judging from the direction you came from, I'm pretty sure they were in quarantine at some point during the night, probably trying to get some of the marulas that the boys have been swooping up. Between Daryl and the two young males that, well, not young, but not that old males that we saw yesterday, I feel like quarantine is just a massive carpet full of marulas that's being either swept or vacuumed clean of marulas. Don't know, maybe the marulas on quarantine taste better than the marulas elsewhere. You see the trunk there, facing in our direction? It's a little sneaky way of catching our scent, just trying to smell us and see what we're up to. Nothing to be bothered about, and then it's just always easier to go and get the branches of somebody else, isn't it? You two double trouble. And you can see the black sky, but it almost looks like to a bit of the right. We might have some hope, as it seems like the sky is a little bit clearer. Now, we're supposed to have rain the whole week, but yesterday we had such a hot day that I don't really know what to think at this point. I think probably waking up and just looking outside our window might be the easiest way. Ooh, look at this. I might need to go forward, but can you see the one on to the right of them? I don't know if the pole of that one there. We were talking, if the pole gets in the way, it's because we've put the roofs on just so that we don't get all of our equipment wet. Now, she's not helping, but that's a pregnant female. She looks very, very, very big and very fat, more than an elephant does. And just to continue with our conversation about pregnancy, it would have been interesting, but she's decided that she's not going to be part of it. Okay, where have you gone, Elise? Seems like they've all gone away, and we're going to take this cue to carry on our exploration. But while we do that, let's go to Tristan, who's looking at a tiny little itsy-bitsy thing.
I am indeed. So I was going to show you something else. Earlier I said we made a nice discovery, but unfortunately I found something else on my arm and I got distracted because I have absolute squirrel syndrome, and we all know that I can't kind of keep myself from exploring and seeing new different things. So what I was doing is I was sitting here and I noticed that there was a spot on my arm, and that spot looked very much like it was a grass seed, but as it turns out, it wasn't a grass seed at all. In fact, it was a little insect. Now, the little insect that I've placed him under the microscope because he's very, very small and it's very difficult to have a look at it and see it very easily. But what we've got is a leaf hopper. Now, leaf hoppers are insects that we get out here that sit on various types of plants, and they will suck the sap and various bits of juices that come out of little grass stems and soft succulent plants, and that's what they go after. But this little guy is still very small. They do get bigger than this, but you can see they've got a very cool kind of camouflage. They're this light green color. In fact, here it looks a little bit darker on the microscope. They're actually very, very green. And then in front, they've got these big, big eyes. So I'm going to try and show you there. They've got big eyes in front that are red in coloration with two tiny little antennae that they've got. Now, I want to try and turn it over because the interesting part is on the other side. So I'm going to just try and give it a little turn. Oh, there we go. Well done. That wasn't too bad, hey, Sferg. I've done all right there. I think James would be quite proud. Now, unfortunately, this little guy has sustained some damage to its legs. It's missing a whole bunch of legs. But anyway, we can see that there is an eye. But then over here, do you see coming from the mouth there is a protrusion, a little orange kind of, almost looks like a straw. And that's exactly what that is. So that is the little leaf hopper's straw that comes out, and it basically injects into the soft stem of a plant or a flower or whatever it's feeding on, a grass stem, and it's able to then absorb the nutrients through that straw. So it basically sucks the life out of that little plant, which is pretty crazy to think. So you can actually see it quite nicely. You can see they've got quite interesting little colors as well. Lots of blues in there, and then those bright red eyes with those small antennas. They're very, very cool little things. Now, unfortunately, like I say, this little one, I think, is on the last legs, so to speak, because it's missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 legs. It's only got the one leg at the moment, which is not ideal. So, Josh, you're wondering if it has wings? So, yes, Josh, if you look on where the porcupine quill is pointing, so coming down like this, over the abdomen, there's the wings kind of casing over, so it can fly, that's for sure. And that's probably how it ended up on my arm. As I was walking through the grass to get to the tent, you probably find a situation where a bit of wind blew and I disturbed it and it flew up and landed on my arm. So it does have wings, it can fly, and that's how it's able to get from plant to plant in order to be able to suck up the nutrients that it needs. Now, what I want to try and do I might mess this up, so I do apologize if I do, but I want to try and just turn it on its side. There you go. So can you see the... Come on, turn for me. I wanted to show you the little proboscis that is sticking out. There, can you see it? It's just sticking out close to the legs there, and unfortunately it's now fallen back over again. But that was what I wanted to show you, is that little piece that comes down over there, and that is what we were talking about. How cool is that little insect though? Very, very cool little things, and we often miss them because of their size. If I show you how big they are absolutely tiny. So if I have Fergus come very close to where I am, there is the little insect there. That's my finger, and that's the insect that we've got. So that gives you an idea of just how big a leafhopper is. Now, this is, I think, a little small leafhopper. They do get bigger than this. I've seen bigger ones than this in this area, but that's the size that we're dealing with this morning, and that's why it looks like a little green seed. Caesar, you're wondering if there are cicadas in Africa. Yes, there are. There are actually quite a number of them. In fact, today will be a good day for it, because if we get a bit of rain like this and then some sunshine afterwards, we'll definitely start to hear the cicadas stridulating, which is when they rub their leg up against their resonating organ on their abdomen and cause that sound that you hear from cicadas. So we should see or hear them hopefully this afternoon if we get a bit of sun that breaks after this rain. They are around, and there are plenty of them, and they're amazing little creatures. I actually have a video that I'd like to show you a little bit later of cicadas vocalizing and how loud it can be. I took it with my cell phone, which means that the audio is not great, but I'll put it up against my hat and you'll be able to hear just how loud it is. And like I say, all it is their legs that rub up against this little sort of membrane that covers a hollowing in their abdomen, and that's basically rubbing on it is much like playing a drum. It's like they hit the drum with their leg all the time, and that's what causes that high-pitched noise that you hear from cicadas. They're absolutely amazing little insects, and there's a number of different species that you get, and some of them are amazing because they will be buried and dormant underground for up to 20 years, which is a long, long time when you think about it, and then they kind of hatch out and out they come and they'll start to breed. But it's really amazing that they'll spend time underground like that. Now, the other discovery that I made that I was wanting to tell you about, well, in fact, I didn't make it, so I can't take credit for this. This was Jared's doing, or some of the FC crew when they were busy cleaning up an FC, is that, as you can see on our giraffe here, we've decorated it with a number of different dead things just to make it almost Christmas tree-like. So we've got the giraffe that is dead, then we've got the dead dung beetle on top, just looking very pretty, and then over here we have a very cool find, which is a mummified frog. So this little mummified frog, it was found in FC of all places, and it was a situation where the poor thing got trapped inside the final control. And because we run an aircon in there to try and keep all the screens nice and sort of cool, what happens is it becomes a very dry environment. So aircons often dry out what's going on inside a room. And this poor thing obviously dehydrated to the point where it was completely mummified. Now, the species of frog that this is a foam nest tree frog. Very difficult to tell that it's a foam nest tree frog like this, but they are always doing this. They always get into rooms, unfortunately, and they get into a situation where they get caught in there and then they do dehydrate quite quickly. The only indication that you can see that this is a foam nest tree frog is here on the side, so I'll point to it. You see there's a little black line that's coming down the side of this frog's body. So that little black line you see on foam nest tree frogs, and then there's also quite a bit of sort of mottled coloration, which a foam nest tree frog does have. What's really cool about this is that we can see the eye is still actually inside there, so that's why we say it's mummified. The skin has all dried with the organs and everything. It doesn't smell in any way. It is pretty amazing to see, and what I want to do is try and put it under the microscope a little bit later so that I can show you their foot structure. We can check how the back legs work. You can see how long the back legs are, and we can even show you a bit of their skeletal structure coming down, because you can see a few bones and bumps all over the place, which is very cool. But how is that? Isn't that a bit weird? It's a bit macabre, I know, but I think it's very cool, and I definitely want to have a little deeper look at our mummified frog. And so while we look at our mummified frog, and while I try and get it into a point where we can examine its feet, let's send you back over to Byron and see how his quest for those lions is going.
Well, it's not going too well at the moment, Tristan. I'm having a look. No fresh signs of these lions from last night. I've got a feeling they turned and headed south. So I'm having a good look around here for any fresh tracks. But nothing yet. We saw the tracks where we had them yesterday, but not too sure which direction they headed in. what I'm basically doing is just driving around and checking the boundary roads at the moment. From where they were working that immediate area, so we can see which direction they went. I've got a feeling they went south, and tell you why is because also had that large herd of buffalo that was seen, I think, yesterday morning, and they moved south, so possibly these lions might be trailing that herd of buffalo. It's a lovely morning. There's a little bit of drizzle. It seems to be on and off. It's now stopped again, but every now and then we get a light bit of drizzle. Everything is so fresh at the moment. Like Tristan was saying, with the cicadas possibly being quite active maybe today or a little bit later, especially as the day warms up. I think we're going to have a lot of insects with this rain and humidity. Hope to see some more elephant again. I had that wonderful sighting of that bull elephant yesterday afternoon. It's one of my favorites. One of my one of my favorite animals to spend time with. Big male, big bull elephant. And it's great to be back again. I'm chatting about it last night. It's always nice coming back into this area and guiding. Seeing what has happened, what has changed, and there's been a lot of change, lots of leopard dynamics that have changed slightly. The lions and Djuma pride, all those youngsters that we found a few months ago that are sub-adults now. Just going to stop and listen for a second. As you know, it does help a lot if you stop and listen to the bush. Occasionally you might hear something. Yesterday we heard the lions. That's how Aviam and I initially found them. We heard them growling. I think there was a scrap between the younger lions and the pride. Earlier this morning I heard those wonderful ground hornbills, that deep booming sound. I could hear them not far from camp. I can hear a black-headed oriole calling at the moment. Something like that. Trying to see. You never know, we could hear alarm calls. There we go. Can you hear the black-headed oriole? Oh, there it goes. It just flew past. I'll show you a picture quickly. For those of you who haven't seen, I'm sure most of you have seen the black-headed oriole already, but it is a beautiful bird. I always enjoy the sound of the oriole. Surprisingly, we get them in Johannesburg too. And you can often hear, and if you're lucky, spot them. But there we go. That beautiful black-headed oriole. I saw another oriole in December. It was the African golden, I think it was. No, it was the Eurasian golden. Tough to find it. There we go. Look at that. No black head, just black on the wings. Saw that one in December. I'm sure that's been seen on Safari Live too. It does occur in this area. I saw that in the Timbavati in a different area. Not far from here, about 50 kilometers north of here, I'd say. Maybe less. Alright. I can see the odd hyena track around here, but no sign of the lions yet. I'm going to keep looking very carefully, checking this road, and we'll see. Maybe we can find some fresh tracks. Let's head across to Ali and find out how her morning's going. And she said she wanted to go north. I hope she has some luck in that area.
Oh, sorry, my comms are not coming through. Seems like I might be in a bit of a tough spot, but thank you, Senzo, for letting me know. And if you were wondering about him, he was just cleaning up the screen as it's coming up a little bit dirty with the rain. Now, it does seem like the rain has stopped, which is wonderful, or at least for a little bit, but the wind is still coming down. So we're gonna head away from the main road. I was hoping to find some signs for Shidulu or perhaps even Hukumuri, because he seems to walk quite a bit and further during the day. And we're just gonna go back up here, see if perhaps we cannot find something else. Now, I haven't seen any trucks for anything else after we left the elephants. Grateful Dad, you're wondering where the chameleons have been. Well, they should be all around. This is the best time for the year for them, for the chameleons, as they will normally hang on the trees, and there are so many insects that they can eat and just fill themselves up and be very happy about it. Now, unfortunately, because they are chameleons, they're very hard to spot during the day. But perhaps we can make that our challenge of the day. Try and find a chameleon very nicely tucked in through the branches of a tree. It is a little bit easier to find them during the nighttime just because they shine a little bit different when you're using a spotlight. So sometimes that is an easier way to find them. But they should be around. They haven't migrated anywhere. We're just not being that good at finding them. Which is a little bit unfortunate because they're very, very interesting creatures. And I did see one the other day, but it was crossing the road as we went out the gate for a walk. It was about maybe this big. Very pretty chameleon. Now, doesn't seem... Oh, hello, Impala. Running across. Are there more of you coming this way? Alrighty. I'm gonna stop because it seems like they are on full speed motion. There's one that's gonna come ahead of us. There we go. Running through. That's a lot of energy for so early in the morning. Interesting. Okay. Bye, guys. You clearly are a little bit skittish, so we're not gonna bother you anymore. I'm gonna carry on our way. Now, I think I'm going to head on to check the western road, see if perhaps there's anything that might have come around that area. You never know. And here's to hoping. Maybe we'll even get a pangolin this morning. Or a porcupine. It would be wonderful to see a porcupine. I feel like at Djuma, porcupines and pangolins are the tough ones. The PPs are not easy to find. Alright, well, Senzo, the rain has stopped a little bit again, so here's to hoping for us. And you should see Senzo right now. He's got a shuka all wrapped around him, got a very unhappy face because he's getting wet, and about 4 jackets. Well done. I feel like you look like you're in a happy place, though. More than enough. I'm hoping that we're gonna get out of this power line section, which normally tends to interfere with the comms, very soon. Seems like Tristan is becoming a botanist and he's looking at some plants, so let's head on to him and find out what plant he's looking at.
Well, I am looking at a plant, but not from a botany perspective. I'm looking at it because of 2 little black ants that are going crazy all over the place on this plant. And so these are Polyrhacus ants, and they are very common out here. We see a lot of them all over the place. And there was these 2 that were kind of cruising around on the silver cluster leaf, and almost looked as though they were drinking little droplets of water that had collected on the cluster leaf. A cluster leaf is a great thing to be able to find water on because it's got a hairy kind of texture, and so it traps a lot of water droplets, and it makes it really cool for these little guys to come and feed off or drink off. Now, the thing about these little Polyrhacus ants is they're actually very interesting little creatures. I think that they are very cool, and they are actually revered in the Eastern cultures, so particularly in China. They are known as the herb of kings. Now, the reason why they are called the herb of kings is because these guys are edible. So for us as people, we can eat them, and they apparently are very good for a number of reasons. They are good for the immune system, so they help balance the immune system out. They help with kidney and liver function and getting those to work a little bit better. And, well, if you're Byron, who might be interested in this fact, is that they are also a potent sex tonic. No, I'm just joking. Byron, I'm giving you trouble. They apparently help with the libido. That's what they say. Now, I don't think I would want to eat a Polyrhacus ant, and I'll tell you why. These little guys, for me, are one of the prettiest ants we've got, and the reason why we like them is because, well, why I like them is because they've got this kind of matte black appearance with these little velvety hairs. Maybe this one here, Ferg, is going to be better. Well, they're all over the place. They're moving quite a bit. But they've got these velvety hairs on them that give them this little shine, and they've got these big, beautiful black eyes, and then these antennae that come down. So they're not the most colorful ant, but I just think they've got a cool factor to them. They're almost like a ninja ant, if you want to call it that, and they kind of move around, and like I say, very common, harmless to us. They don't bite us, they don't sting us, they don't do anything like that. So they're not like a velvet ant, which is actually, as we know, a wasp, but they are very cool things. I quite like them, and there's one that's going straight towards Fergus. But they're busy creatures, and the insects this morning are only going to get busier as the morning progresses, as the rain starts to stop and it starts to warm up. So we're going to find many insects coming out and landing all over the place. First Lady, you want to know if it's true that this ant is born blind. So, First Lady, I've never heard that before. It's possible, I suppose. I'll try and research it a little bit for you, but I've never heard that fact being given out. And I know that James has gone in depth with Polyrhacus ants quite often, and so I'll try and see what I can find out. These things are possible. Insects are just the most amazing creatures. They've got so many little nuances about them, and each one is often different, and there's so many insects that it's difficult to actually know everything about all of them. In fact, even some of the entomologists that are in South Africa that you speak to, they just say, the insect order is so huge and so vast that so little is known about them that, it takes a while to kind of get to know everything. But I'll try and sort of research it and see. It wouldn't surprise me if they are. And ants being the way that they are probably got, when they have their little ones and they're carrying around their eggs and then they hatch from those eggs, you probably find that they might be blind, but they've got these incredible antennae, as you can see with Polyrhacus. It's got long antennas for an ant, and they're able to probably feel a lot of their way with those, and then the eyes will develop later. But very cool little guys, and they move like crazy. Like I said, they're always busy, and even when you find them during cold parts of the day, hot parts of the day, they're the same. They're up and down and up and down and all over the place. And when you do bushwalks, you can find this ant pretty much everywhere. You find it on all kinds of different grasses, you find it on lots of trees, but particularly these silver cluster leaves. I find that they like the silver cluster leaf. What the exact reason is, I'm not quite sure. I wonder if they don't feed off maybe the sap or something that they get, because at the base of where the cluster forms, just over here, so there's a little cluster element over there. This is where these ants congregate. So if you go in the mornings, early in the mornings, you'll find lots of them congregated at this area here where all the leaves are coming out. And I wonder if there's maybe some sort of food source at that exact point that they're after, because that's where they often go and feed. Right. I'm going to go and put these guys back in the bush. But let's take a stroll anyway outside, because it's a beautiful, beautiful morning now that the kind of sun has come up a little bit and it's cleared. Well, not cleared. I suppose it's still overcast and rainy, but at least it's a fresh morning. It smells nice. It smells like there's been a bit of rain, and there has been, as though it's been washed clean. Now I'm going to put Polyrhacus and friend, Polyrhacus and company, what do we call them? Polyrhacus squared, back into a silver cluster leaf. So we're going to balance them in there. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Ali and see where she is. I believe she's looking for a frog that used to be somewhere, but maybe is not there anymore.
Affirmative, Tristan. We are looking for a frog, so we didn't find the frog, but we found its nest. Now, this particular thing that you're looking hanging from the tree that seems that might fall at any point is the nest of the foam tree frog, or the tree frog, as some other people would like to call it. Now, it's a little bit hard to show you from here, but the very interesting thing about this particular frog and their nesting habits is that it's actually overhanging a little mud wallow. So it's done on purpose for that way, so that when the tadpoles do come out, that they actually are going to fall into the water, and then they have a bit of a better chance at life. Now, sometimes what does happen is that, unfortunately, the pans underneath the nest, they fall, and they dry. And as the tadpoles fall, then they fall into pretty much hard ground, so they are not able to survive. Now, I just want to approach it and go a little bit closer, just to try and explain a little bit better how these things are formed. Hopefully, we won't find any of the angry parents around here, although I doubt it. Now, oh, I don't want to break it, but it's very interesting. Now, you can see it's very big. It's about, the size of my full hands, and this is probably one of the biggest ones that I've seen. Now, if you can't see my face because of the branches, I apologize, because otherwise I'm going to fall into the mud. Now, what will happen is that you will see on this branch in particular, probably one female and a collection of males, all of them around. And it seems like it doesn't really matter for these species of frog how many males there are, and that they're all mating with the same female. It seems like they're very loose in that regard. So you'll have a female that's all the way up here, and the males making their calls and so on. So as the female arrives, there will be one male that will jump and then hold on to her, and while while they mate, she's going to produce a substance that she's going to start frothing with her back legs, and it's going to become the first layer of this nest. Now, another male might come in and also start contributing to the nest, not to the making of the nest, but to fertilize all the eggs that she's going to lie in here. And then that male might go away, and then another male might come and mount her again, and so on and so on, and the process is repeated. Normally, it will last only about a night, and then on the second night, the female is going to return, and then she's going to add an extra layer onto the nest just to make sure that it's sturdy enough for the tadpoles to survive, so that they're not going to start falling as they start becoming bigger. Now, once the tadpoles start hatching in there, and this is it's very foamy. That's why it's called a foam nest frog. Now, in there, because of the way she's frothted this, if you imagine if you go like this, obviously there are a lot of bubbles of air, and those are the bubbles of air that allow the tadpoles to survive, the oxygen, because otherwise there wouldn't be any oxygen. And as the tadpoles start hatching and start moving around, they all start coming to the bottom part of the nest. So as they all start coming to the bottom of the nest, you can imagine that everything gets a little bit thicker or heavier, and then poof, they all fall. I think this one's, depending on where they fall and how can I put this? How much of a fighter they can be, then they might actually just survive. Still a little bit better, and if it carries on raining today, I think there will be hope for little froggies and tadpoles that are in there. Now, you get to see them quite a bit during this time of the year. There we go, now I'm plugged in. And normally, like I said, overhanging water bodies on trees, and you hear the frogs calling all throughout the night. So it's one of my favorite things of summer, because you don't see them at any other time of the day. And they just look, I don't know, it's almost like, how can I put it, like a meringue, that if you touch it, then your finger's going to go straight through the nest. So that's why we don't want to even attempt at touching it, because we don't want to destroy somebody else's house. Tristan has got a froggy, the same species, and he's going to look at it under the microscope. So let's head over to him and have a closer look.
I do indeed, and it's a rather creepy looking sort of thing. So what you're seeing there is the front foot of a frog, and it is kind of under a very big microscope. And so you can actually see the bones underneath the skin and how they kind of come forward, and you can see that most of the flesh is completely decomposed around that bone, and the skin is sucked in, and exactly how kind of mummification works. It's all just dried up and made a situation. Now, the little fibers that you're seeing all over it are the fibers probably from the carpet in final control that it got stuck in, and so that is what you're seeing there. It also looks as though there's a few fungal spores there. Now, the reason why I say a few fungal spores is if you have a look at those black dots that are lining the edges of the toes, it's difficult to maybe see them, but there's a lot of little black dots, and I think that those might be little fungal spores that have also grown on this frog. Since it's been out of the final control, it's been sitting outside, and it's been a moist environment, so I wonder if maybe that's what we're seeing on there. Now, what I want to do is I want to try and move our frog just in a little bit, so we're going to go away from the feet for a while, and I want to try and see. I wonder if this is going to work, but let's try. I'm going to try and just focus everything up for you guys. But there we go. That is the stomach of a frog, and you can actually see where the vein network was. So all those black lines that look like little rivers, that would have been where blood would have flowed through veins and blood vessels and would have gotten the blood all over the actual frog itself. Now, you can see inside there the internal organs are still there. That's all the blue stuff that you're seeing underneath the skin. But how incredible is that? And you can see the skin is quite soft and it looks soft, and it's got a few little dermal bumps on it, but nothing major. So it's not like a toad that would have had big bumps all over it. These have got almost almost depressions through the skin itself. But that is absolutely fascinating to see kind of where the blood must have flowed through this not a crocodile, this is a frog. So this foam nest tree frog's stomach. How cool is that? Very, very cool to see. It's a bit of a dirty frog because of the fact that it's been lying around. Now, the back legs are very different, and unfortunately the back legs on this particular frog have been absolutely hammered. So I want to just try and lift this up. So it's going to go out of focus. I do apologize, but let's just try and get our frog back into its little situation. Now, there we go. I think I've almost got it right. I just got to focus it up. All right, so that's now the back foot that we're seeing. I'm trying to kind of just get it so that you guys can see the toes. There we go. So you see the difference now in the foot structure. This one is much, much longer. So it's got a long back leg that has got these massive, massive toes. And they'll use that, obviously, to jump. They've got the ability to get a lot more leverage off longer feet and be able to then explode out. And you'll find that those long toes probably help just with that springing effect. The front feet are more to grip and to walk and to try and kind of keep them balanced. And so those can be nice and short and stubby, whereas these are very long. The interesting part about this is you can actually see a bit of the webbing in the sort of between the toes. So I'm trying to get my porcupine quill in there somewhere. So it's quite difficult actually to do this, but there we go. There's the porcupine quill. But if you look at the toe itself, come on, there we go. Where the porcupine quill is, that is where the webbing is. It's all dried out now, unfortunately, but that webbing is there. And so when this frog would have been alive, it would have split its toes out, and that webbing would have gone out, and that would have helped it to swim, as well as, if this was a female, to be able to make that big ball that Ali has just shown you, so that ball of foam, because what happens is that foam obviously comes out and she then kicks back, and the webbing feet will help with just getting that mucus all over and actually frothing it nicely to form that massive nest. But it's absolutely fascinating to look at these kind of things under the microscope. We very seldom get to do these kind of things, and it makes it really interesting when you have this and you're able to actually kind of see. And like I say, just to see the blood network of the tummy is very, very cool. Now, Brad, I think this is what you said. I'm not 100% sure, but it was, is there a special substance that's secreted? I can read it. Look at that. Is the foam spit or something else that's secreted? So no, it's not spit. It is secreted from the rear end, and it is basically a mucus type secretion that comes out. And how it froths is by her actually kicking with her back legs. So she moves her back legs much like a blender, effectively, and that blender adds air into that mucus or that secretion, and that allows it to then expand out and cause this massive amount of foam that forms. And so she just keeps secreting as she goes, and the more she secretes, the more she calls, the more the males come, and then she starts to deposit these strings of eggs inside there, and the males then deposit sperm, and you get multiple different males all over the place that come in. And the nice thing about multiple males is that you get a very nice genetic variety across all of those eggs, and so multiple different fathers for her brood. And then they obviously hatch inside of this foamy, moist environment. The little tadpoles live inside there, and then as they kind of develop and they become too heavy and the foam starts to dry, they then drop out the bottom into the water underneath. That is hopefully still there, because sometimes foam nest tree frogs get it horribly wrong, and they do their little foam nest above a water point that then dries up in the space of a day or so, and those poor tadpoles will fall to dusty ground, which of course will not go very well at all, and they'll then be cleaned up quite quickly. So it's important sometimes that these guys pay attention. The most successful ones will obviously be building theirs over fairly permanent water sources. So you'll find like the ones at Twin Dams are pretty good. Treehouse Dam, the branches that overhang there are pretty good. So there's a number of different places where there's great foam nests that can be built, and then there's others that are just really not very good at all. But interesting nonetheless. It's pretty cool. I want to try and obviously fiddle around more with this frog and try and see if we can have a little closer look at its eye and various other things. And so while I try and kind of figure it out and try and play around and see if I can actually balance it under the microscope to see the eyes, let's send you back across to Byron, who I believe has got 5 questions that he wants to ask or answer. I'm not quite sure.
Ah, now a random fast 5. Okay, well this could be fun and interesting. Just give me a second, Rebecca. I thought I saw a track here. Viam and I have been searching very carefully for any tracks or signs of animals. It's been fairly quiet so far. Wonderful bird sightings though, and just the usual birds, but it's still so lovely to see them. All the hornbills. Saw some hornbills going through elephant dung. A lot of insects in that dung at the moment. Emerald spotted wood doves, orioles calling. Okay, let's go random fast 5. Tenti, you asked, are there any natural ligers? Now, if I'm not mistaken, the liger was a zoo experiment, a lion crossed with a tiger. No, Tenti, there are no natural ligers. In a natural habitat, natural environment, it's highly unlikely and I think impossible for animals to breed within other species. That's a zoo experiment. No, naturally they do not occur. Next one. I like this fast 5. Robert, you asked where are all the giraffe? I'm not sure. Vildi, when last did you see giraffe here? VM doesn't like giraffe. That's why it's quite funny asking him when last he saw giraffe. I don't know. I wonder why VM doesn't like the giraffe very much. Robert, I'm not sure. You know what happens is you get general movements, seasonal movements of these animals, even in these areas, move around looking for food. I'm sure we'll see some giraffe at some point. They've got to be around somewhere. Caesar, you asked, are there any cacti in Africa? Yes, Caesar, there are. There are a number of different species. I'm trying to think of. Well, we do get euphorbias out here, which I think is a family of the cacti. So we do get them out in this area, but in other parts of South Africa and in Africa, there definitely are species of cacti. Mr. Michael, you asked how far we are from the nearest town. Well, let me try stop here for a second. Mr. Michael, we are some impala over here. The nearest major town would be Hoedspruit. Doctors, fairly large shopping centers where you could get all the necessities and a few luxuries, I suppose. Now, Hoedspruit from here is about an hour's, about an hour and a half drive, at least an hour and a half. So that's how far we are from the nearest major town. I say major town because there are some small communities, as I'm sure you know, outside of the game reserves, but they're not major towns by any means. So the nearest town, Hoedspruit, it's spelled H-O-E-D, Hoedspruit. That's the closest. Michael, now your question. Do we have secretary birds? Yeah, we do. I've seen secretary birds in this area before. I must tell all of you a story. I went to it was a rehabilitation center, a raptor rehabilitation center in December, and they have a secretary bird that they unable to release. It has been reared from a young bird, and they saved it from traditional healers that sometimes capture the birds and use them for traditional medicine. They saved the bird, but they were unable to release it. But it was fascinating to see this the secretary bird walking around, and what they did was they still try and allow the bird to act as naturally as possible, even though it's in captivity. So they do feed it, obviously, but what they do is they have a rubber snake that they use, they pull it on a string, just so the bird can still act in a natural or have natural behavior as it would in the wild. To see a secretary bird stamping and killing a snake is fascinating. I've seen them kick once or twice, but never actually up close and personal. They stamp so hard and so fast. They hit the ground and they use the one of the back talons mainly to puncture whatever it is that they're killing. But they are incredibly fast, and the way they smack the ground, you hear the thud. A snake honestly has no chance against a secretary bird. Fascinating animals. I was amazed to see how powerful they are and how serious those kicks are. Okay, well, let's continue our search. We need to try to find some more animals. Let's go across to Ali, who's managed to find some elephant.
We have bumped into a very lively little creature, because you're still very small, but he's been having a blast trying to show us that he's actually the one in command. Tiny little elephant has been approaching and going back and forth, and almost using his trunk to try and deter us from carrying on down the road. Now, this is my favorite kind of roadblock. Practicing all the moves that it's seen the bigger ones do. But you are running the wrong way. Normally you're supposed to raise your head and run at us. Oh, so entertaining. Are you also now practicing how to vacuum marulas? It seems like that's exactly what you're doing, little one. The trunk going all over the show. Very scary, very scary. I'm sorry I laughed. Very scary little one indeed. So the rest of his family is around us, but he's the one that's been standing on the road. And as soon as we arrived, he started putting on such a wonderful show that we don't really want him to stop. And he's not doing this because he feels threatened in any way, but I think it's a little bit of trying to show who's actually in command. I'm sure he's seen his mother, potentially sisters and aunties and everybody else do this, but also because I don't see any youngsters around. So it's almost like the little lion cub of the Nkahuma pride, really just looking for a partner to play with, somebody to try and bully. Maybe you're a little bit tired scratching your eye like that? Nope, okay, no bedtime for you. So beautiful. You see, he's trying to wrap his trunk around the grass to try and pull it, but I don't think he's quite got it yet. So well, at least you got one, little one. Yes, well done. But as soon as he starts wrapping his trunk around the grass, then the grass starts turning around, so that's why he's not able to grab it. Oh my. It's all fun and games when you're little, but when you're big, then it's not ideal if you do that. Full of life, aren't you, this morning? Yep. I don't think this Ellie's got as wet as the ones that we saw early this morning. They seem to be a little bit drier, so I wonder if perhaps they were in the cover of some bushes. Now, look at the beautiful manicured toenails that they've got. Because it's been raining and obviously there's a lot of water all around us and still some few droplets hanging on the grass, then their toenails get cleaned almost, allowing us to see them a little bit better. Now you can see also the sand is sticking to the soles of their feet, so that's why it's got that reddish color every time it moves around. Now, I think that my comms are not working whatsoever. So Rebecca, if you're trying to talk to me, I cannot hear one word you're saying. Beautiful little one. Mike, you're asking if elephants seek shelter in the rain. Thank you, Senza, for relying the question. They can, depends on the rain. If it's just a light drizzle, you'll see that perhaps they're not that interested in seeking shelter. They might just decide to brave it out. But if it's getting a little bit too much, then often they will go underneath the cover of a tree just to prevent themselves from getting as wet as they would if they were standing out in the open. But this little one will probably seek shelter right next to its mother. I think that's probably the biggest house you could find. It's not small enough already, or it's big that it doesn't fit underneath its mom. But still, standing next to mom might be the best place. Okay, attempt number 2. Okay, you're getting there. You're getting the hang of things. So I would assess and put you at about a year of age or so, or just getting there, because starting to get a little bit dexterous with the use of your trunk. Getting there. Well done. Almost there. Oh, that's so sweet. I love it when Ellies clean their eyes or scratch their eyes with their trunk. Very pretty, standing in typical elephant fashion with one of the back legs crossing onto the front leg. Yeah. Sorry, Zens, did you hear that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Sorry guys, it seems like our comms are being a little bit of a problem, and I know Rebecca is trying to feed questions through, but unfortunately only Sensen can hear them. And I am plugged in, Rebecca, in case you were wondering.
Sneaky, where do elephant reach maturity?
Sneevy, you're wondering, when do elephants reach maturity? Well, they do it at around about, I would say, between 12 and 16 years of age for the females, and then the males, although they are also mature at that time, they're only going to be able to breed later on in life, because at that age they're still too young, and they will not be able to fend off some of the bigger elephants that are fighting for the mating rights. So females, I would say about 14 is a good average. The males perhaps will start actually getting a chance to mate when they're about 20, 25. That's when they can start even thinking about it, but they will reach sexual maturity when they're about 15 or so, if I'm not mistaken. Those are some very clean toenails that you've got going on there. Now there's one of the other siblings there. Are you going to try and play with them? Oh, you want everyone to know that you're the big one. It's a small herd that we've got around here. It's just a female and her 3 calves. Sean, you're asking why elephants have got toenails. Well, I suppose it's for the same purpose as what we do, just to protect the tip of our limbs and our hands or fingers. So they've got the same, just to protect the soles of their feet. As you can imagine, if they just had skin as they walk around, and they would damage the front part of or the bottom part of their legs. So the nails just add an extra bit of protection, especially for them as they move here, because there are so many branches and trees and fallen over things that if they didn't have that protection, very likely their skin would be cut open a lot. I think we're fine here though. I think the little one's going to carry on coming our way. You're quite an entertaining little thing, aren't you? Now, it's a little bit strange to see just one female with these 3 youngsters, and 2 of them are roughly of the same size. So it could be that there's a very remote possibility. Oh, you're gonna go eat directly from the ground. Right, I'm going to try and sort out this comms problem, but while I do that, let's head to Byron, who's with a nest.
Well, I've got a little water hole over here, and Tristan managed to find a little foam nest frog, and I've found a nest, and one that looks fairly new. I'm just going to go and have a look there quickly, because I want to see if I can see any tadpoles. Sometimes I think you can see some tadpoles in these nests, and I think with a little bit of rain that we had, maybe these nests are active. There's one little one over here. Doesn't look too active. I want to check this bigger one. Now they usually build the nests above the water, so that as the tadpoles hatch inside this nest, they can wriggle down and drop straight down into the water. Now this one actually isn't directly above the water. It's a little bit away from the water. So these little tadpoles are going to hit the ground fairly hard. Now, I'm just trying to see. I don't see anything. It's quite soft, the nest, at the moment. Now what happens is this rain softens the nest slightly, and then that will help the eggs hatch or wriggle down and be able to penetrate through that foam nest and then drop down into the water. You never know. Maybe we see a few little tadpoles around here. can't see anything. The water's very murky. But wonderful to see that foam nest from the foam nest frog. And it's amazing what will happen is the female will climb up onto a tree, onto a branch like that, and then she will call, and obviously the males call, and they'll attract one another, and then a number of males will go and try and fertilize the eggs. So as the female's laying all these eggs, the males jostle for the best position to fertilize the eggs, and that then stirs up that liquid and causes that foam to start forming. And then it takes about a week or so, about 7 days, 7 to 10 days, for the little tadpoles to incubate inside that foam nest, and then hatch, wriggle down, and then land in the water. As I said, it does help if there's a bit of rain to soften that nest a bit. It does form slightly hard-ish little layer around the outside, a little crust. Now, Snazzy, you were asking how do they get the nest so high in the tree? So just as I was saying, the females, or the frogs, both male and female, obviously climb up and go right up into the branches above the water. Some of them can be twice or 3 times as high as that. I've seen some foam nests up in trees near water, like the knob thorns, quite high above the water, and you see these beautiful nests up at the top there. It's very interesting. I find the foam nest frogs one of the most fascinating little creatures out here. They build this bright white nest that really stands out, but apparently it is a bit distasteful, so it does help protect the eggs in there so that the nests don't get raided by birds. But at times some of the herons and that will try and get some tadpoles out of there. Oh, there's a little squirrel enjoying a little snack there, morning snack. Well spotted with him. Little tree squirrel. Now, Keisha, you asked how many eggs will fit into that little nest. I'm not entirely sure, but if you... I'm trying to think now. I actually don't know exactly how many eggs they lay. I would guess almost 100 eggs. I don't know in some of the larger nests. I wonder, maybe Tristan has a book nearby that is able to tell us exactly how many eggs. I think it would vary depending on the size of the nest, depending on the frog, but probably between 50 and 200, I'd say, somewhere around there. But also because, not all of them survive. So the more they lay, the better chance of some of them surviving. So B. Wilson, exactly what you were asking now with the nest, if birds would tear the nest apart. I haven't seen them actually tear the nest apart, but I do know some birds may try and raid the nest, but it doesn't happen that often. I think that bright white color is usually associated with distasteful coloration. Birds don't necessarily like it, so they don't. And I think it does actually protect the eggs because of that distastefulness. So some big words for early in the morning. So not very tasty at all, and that does protect the eggs, so birds don't raid it constantly. Okay, so we've just seen the nest of the foam nest frog. Now it appears as if Tristan managed to work out the microscope, and he's got the eye, and let's see if he knows how many eggs they can lay in a single nest.
Well, we don't actually have the eye. What we've got is the eardrum, or tympanum, as it's known as. So that is actually where it has a membrane of skin that covers over, and as sounds come, it vibrates that membrane of skin, and that is how it hears. So it works very similar to our eardrum, except that it's far more exposed. So it sits just behind the eye. You would think that is the eye, but it is not. That is actually its ear that we are having a look at there. The eye itself is gone, so there is just a fold of skin that is on the eye itself, which is not actually very interesting at all. It, in fact, is very difficult to make out anything in the eye. It's just kind of this mass of dead skin, really, and most of the fluid's gone, so it's kind of become quite flattened. So under the microscope, it looked a bit odd and quite odd. Now, in terms of number of eggs, so Byron was asking, I actually didn't know the answer to this offhand, so I quickly had a look just to see so I could help Byron out, and the answer to it is that they can lay as many as 1,200 eggs in a single event. So a single nest that they've got can be as many as 1,200 eggs in there, but generally they're laying apparently between 800 and 1,000 eggs. That's normally about this sort of amount that they lay, which is absolutely fascinating. I didn't think it was as much as that. I was along the lines of, I thought maybe about 500 eggs, but 1,000 to 1,200, that's a lot of eggs to be laying and a lot of work. I suppose it makes sense because they build these massive nests and you have so many males. I suppose it's kind of one of those things that, they need a lot of eggs for different males to fertilize, so I suppose it makes sense. Chitty Chatty Meg, you're wondering how long it takes for a tadpole to turn into a frog. Very dependent on the species, but normally, if you ballpark figures are normally around 20 to 30 days, so that's kind of roughly, that covers a lot of the different frog species. Some will be slightly longer, some will be slightly shorter, but that's about the sort of kind of gist of it. I know that James had some, I think it was bullfrog tadpoles that he got and managed to find when we were doing a TV show, and that took much longer. That was almost closer to sort of 45, 50 days, I think, in total that they were started developing, and they hadn't actually reached fully grown frogs by the time James had finished. But some are quicker, especially the smaller frogs, so the micro frogs, the little puddle frogs, they'll be quite quick transitions, whereas the larger frogs, so something like a bullfrog, which gets much bigger, has obviously got a longer period in order to try and grow and to try and get into the size that they need to be. Right. We're going to try and scratch around, see what else we can find around the tent. The sun is up. There's lots of things, hopefully, well, not the sun, I suppose, but there's at least light outside, and so hopefully we'll find some cool things in the wet grass. And while we do that, let's send you across to Byron, who spotted something that is not small and is probably not hiding in the grass like our little insects.
Definitely not small, but something else quite white. The beautiful tusks of an elephant. Nice bull that we've bumped into. So, Tristan, that was interesting. Just getting back to the foam nest frogs quickly. Up to 1,200 eggs. That's amazing. That's a lot in a single nest. So I was a bit short there with only a few hundred. But I suppose it does vary on the size of the nest. You can see, I think that elephant has possibly found some marula fruit there. And speaking about the tusks, Mr. T, you asked, when do elephants start growing their tusks? From a young age, Mr. T. From quite a young age. You often see young elephant, sometimes 2-3 years old. You start seeing the little tusks protruding from just below the upper lip. But out of the mouth. But it does vary. It does vary. I've seen some elephant a bit older, and their tusks only come through a little bit later in life, so about 7-8 years old. So it does vary. But yeah, I think from as young as about 2 or 3, you can start seeing little protrusions. Now, Brad, you're asking, when do elephants reach sexual maturity? I know for females it's quite young, Brad. I think as young as 6 or 7 years old, they can reach sexual maturity or mate for the first time. I don't know how successful they are at that age. With males, it's a bit older. It's about between 15 and 18. They may start showing signs of trying to mate with females. But those are, I think, fairly young ages for elephants to mate. Generally, the more successful elephant that mate are a little bit older. So females probably around 10 to 15 years old, at least, and males maybe in their 20s, and then they would be a lot more successful with mating. Wonderful to see how these elephants love feeding on the marula fruit. Well, at least both Ali and I have managed to find some elephant today. And she had that wonderful sighting of some youngsters being very playful. And we've got a big bull. Caesar, you're asking if elephants are as social as lions. Well, I suppose you could say yes. In terms of, elephant are generally in herds, so you have a lot of females and young together, with the odd large male passing through. Elephants have a very close-knit social structure within a herd, a big family herd. So yes, they are very social. And same with lions, I suppose. The pride of lions, very social, very family orientated, constantly reassuring those bonds between the pride. And I suppose it's similar how lions, the males, tend to move off on their own. And the same with elephants. The older males tend to move off on their own and look for females at some point. When they're ready to mate, you may get 2 or 3 males moving together at times. Same with lions, a coalition, I suppose. So I suppose you could draw a comparison. They are fairly similar in terms of social structure. The morning chorus is really kicking off at the moment. You can hear Franklin's in the background in the distance. Woodland kingfishers still around, Cape turtle doves. Really wonderful. It's so funny, but I find if I haven't been in an area for a while, in a certain area, so I think the last time I was up in Kruger this greater Kruger area was about January, so not too long ago. So it was January, but whenever I spend a bit of time in the city and I come back, I find myself, I don't know, just zoning out slightly in the beginning, just enjoying every little sound and smell that we experience in the bush here. It really is wonderful. You can see this elephant's thrown some soil on his back, especially now with that wet soil after the little bit of rain we had. It's nice to throw that sand over themselves, maybe cool them down slightly, also just keep the flies and bugs off of them. You can see a bit of sand and dust on his forehead. There we go. Very peaceful, large bull elephant. I think that one we saw I wonder. Do you think this is the same one we saw yesterday, Viam? I know, it's always hard to... I don't think so. I think that other one had a little hole in his ear. I remember seeing that. I think this is a different one. And there he goes. Wonderful, peaceful sighting. Fantastic. There's still a lot of marula fruit. I realized last night how many marula fruit there still are, because there's a magnificent large marula tree in camp. However, our tin roofs take a beating with the marula fruit. So last night I got a number of frights actually, because this marula fruit drops down onto the roof, and I suppose we're not used to it. And it hits with a massive bang. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to sleep and about 1 o'clock in the morning and you get this huge bang on your roof. Hold on a second. Wisteria, you asked if the elephants chew on the marula balls or if they just swallow them. So at times they may chew once or twice. Kim, can you see that dung over there? If I will jump out if that's right. I'm just going to jump out over here. I want to show you something. So wisteria, yeah, the elephant, they do chew from time to time, but sometimes there are some of the fruit that they actually miss and they just swallow them completely whole. So you'll find in large dung piles, elephant dung, you'll find whole fruit, but other animals will come and feed on that later on. Monkeys, baboons, squirrels. So other animals do benefit from that, I suppose, but occasionally the elephants just swallow them whole. Now, give me a second. There's some interesting dung. I just want to show you and have a look at and see what it is. Have a look at this. Do you see here? Now, this is not fresh. It's slightly older dung, but it's different. It's not dung that we see often. Let me just use a stick here quickly, just to scrape it open a little bit and see what we've got inside. Might help me identify what dung this is. Now, there's a lot of grass and what looks like roots. What I think this is possibly porcupine. I'm just trying to have a good look here. Yeah, a lot of grass and roots within this dung, and I do think this is possibly porcupine dung that we found over here. Yeah, most certainly. So that's interesting. I haven't seen porcupine here. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen porcupine in this part of the Sabi Sands, but they do occur. They definitely occur in the area. So I'm just listening out for that elephant. Not sure if he's going to turn and come back this way. But this is porcupine dung. I don't see any tracks here. That's why I said it's not a very fresh track. And this is definitely before the rain. The rain has fallen on. There are no tracks along the road. But that is porcupine dung. So you can actually see the roots and the plant material within that dung, which is quite interesting. Let me see quickly if I can just find something in. There's my tracking book. Just want to see if they've got a picture of dung in here quickly. As we know, the porcupine go around and they'll dig up against a tree and get to the roots and the shoots. That's often what they feed on. Maybe some seeds that they find. Here we go. Oh, this is wonderful. This is exactly what we're looking at. I'm just going to show you over there. See that little pile of dung? That's exactly what we've been looking at now. Very, very clear. It is 100% porcupine dung. There we go. The largest rodent in Africa, the porcupine. Awesome creatures, very strange, but wonderful to see when you do find them in the bush. And here's a nice image of evidence of porcupine feeding on the bark of a tree over there. Do you see that? So on the bark of the tree or shoots, and that's exactly, or root shoots, that's exactly what we found in the dung over there. Dale, you were asking where do porcupines go during the day? If you have a look here, sorry I'm zooming in and out, but here we go. There's a porcupine burrow. So they will also use abandoned termite mounds that have possibly been used by warthog or an aardvark, and porcupine may use it afterwards, excavate it a little bit more, and they use that as a home, and that's where they sleep during the day. They are mainly nocturnal, and so yeah, that's where they sleep during the day. That's awesome. I haven't seen nice clear porcupine dung like that for a while. It's It's wonderful to see these little signs of these creatures that we don't always see, but we know they're here because the signs, the tracks, the droppings, whatever the case may be. All right, well, speaking of signs and interesting little creatures, let's see what Tristan has managed to get under the microscope now, or what he is up to.
Well, Byron, nothing under the microscope, but I am an interesting creature. Look at me, I have new eyes. Right, so we've been discussing marulas all morning, really, and how the elephants kind of go after them. And I know some of you are wondering what a marula is, because some of you are new to the show and don't really know what these amazing little fruits are. So, Zam, you are one of them that would like to know. These are marulas right here. Now, these are very ripe marulas. In fact, these are perfect marulas for feeding on, other than the fact that they landed in somewhere where there was a sort of, I don't want to say poison, but stuff that was sprayed for malaria mosquitoes that is done by the government. And so eating these is probably not the best idea. But this is basically what they look like. They fall from the tree. You can see where they grow from. That's how they kind of then get separated from the tree. And then they fall down. Now, they're quite heavy, these marula fruit. They are mostly made up of a pip. There's very little actual fruit inside there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open one of these up for you. Now, I don't have my knife with me, but we'll figure it out. I'm sure I can manage somehow. So let's put that one down there because it's going to make a mess. Fergus, I think let's go outside for this because otherwise we're going to make a big mess. We've got a situation where these things are rather juicy, and when you kind of open things up in the tent and you make a big mess, James Henry is all and then likely going to actually kill me. So I'd rather not be killed, and so I'm not going to do it in there, but you can see actually some of the juices are already coming out. But essentially that's what it looks like inside. So very rich in liquids and very little amount of flesh. So if I actually kind of dig it away, you can actually see there is the pip already. So tiny little bit of flesh, but seriously nutrient rich and seriously sticky. It's got quite a sort of viscous look to it. You can see as I do this, a lot of stickiness in there, and that's because of the amount of sugars. Very, very high in vitamin C, and it is absolutely loved by everything out here, including one of our directors called Nikki Austin, one of our cameramen named Jandre, because Jandre is about the same as Daryl, the elephant, and all he does is walk, when you go on bushwalk with him in marula season, is just hoover marulas by the thousands as you walk along. It's pretty amazing how many marulas that human can fit inside of him, much like an elephant, I would say, really. They are very, very tasty. Like I say, I would normally eat one, but I don't really feel like getting whatever they spray to get rid of malaria mosquitoes all over me. So we're going to throw that and going to put that somewhere else. Now, I did have a really interesting little creature in the tent, but it's disappeared now. So I'm trying to actually see where it went. It was on the giraffe skull for a while. So I want to just see if maybe it's still here. Fergus, did you see where it went?
It went around the back.
It went around the back. Oh no, I think we've lost our friend, Fergus. So there was a millipede inside here. Mildred came to visit, but Mildred has disappeared, or one of Mildred's offspring at least. Maybe we'll call her Matilda because she was a little smaller than what Mildred is. But I don't see where she's gone. So she seems to have disappeared somewhere. So I'm going to try and see where Matilda has gone. And while I do that, let's send you back across to Byron at an expanse of water.
A fair amount of water, Tristan. We're at Buffelshoek Dam. I haven't been here for a while. It's looking really good at the moment, very full. And there is a resident in the dam at the moment who all of a sudden has got very shy. There's a hippo in here. Just trying to see if it pops its head up again. Tristan says he was looking for Mildred in the giraffe skull. Who's Mildred? Mildred the millipede. Ah, right. Fantastic name for a millipede, Tristan. There we go. There's a hippo. Keeping a watchful eye on us. I only see the one. Now, I think the most I've seen in Buffelshoek Dam is actually 4 hippo. Alright, so, sorry Tristan, apparently your millipede's name is Matilda, and Taylor's millipede was Mildred. So, what did Tristan say he's looking for in the giraffe skull? Anyway, I want to show you something I find very, very beautiful. Just have a look off to the left here. Look at this tree. And if you look, this entire tree is covered in these beautiful, beautiful pods. This is a russet bush willow. R-U-S-S-E-T, russet bush willow. And I think quite a apt name for this tree. Beautiful brown, that russet color, rusty brown color. But it's covered with these pods at the moment. It really is beautiful. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to jump out quickly. I want to grab some and just show you close up. Give me a second. Now this is Combretum herreraense, the russet bush willow, and apparently I think the scientific name stems from the Herero tribe up in I think Namibia, if I'm not mistaken. Parts of they and Botswana, they would paint themselves with the red soil. They'd get water and mix the soil together, and that red clay soil, they paint themselves. They've got this wonderful red coloration to help protect their skin from the harsh conditions in the desert. That's the Herero tribe. So this, I think the scientific name herreraense comes from that. But have a look over here. Let me hold it here for you, Liam. Look at these beautiful, not very big pods, but look at that typical four-winged pod of a Combretum tree. And that is the russet bush willow. Look at that color. See a lot of moisture on it at the moment from all the rain that we've had. I remember when we were training, actually, we stopped because they say one of the uses of these trees is that you're able to make a tea, like a bush tea, from these pods. So James and myself and our friends that we trained with, or that James trained, we got a whole bunch of these pods and we put it in boiling water and we stirred it for a bit. We tried to drink our bush tea, our Combretum tea. It wasn't very pleasant, to tell you the truth. So we never did it again. I think you need a few cups of sugar to make it taste pleasant. The sun is starting to peek through. Maybe it's going to burn some of this cloud cover off. All right, well, let us continue. Ali apparently has got her comms back, so we can find out from her what her plan is, but she's got something else rather large she wants to show you again.
We do, and it seems like for us it's been mostly an elephant morning, which is wonderful. I haven't seen so many elephants in a while, so I'm loving the fact that the rain brought them all around. Now, this particular individual, I think it's one of the boys that we saw yesterday evening, and it's, again, sniffing and vacuum all the marulas it can find. So it's currently sitting underneath one of the marulas, and you see his very beautiful trunk. Whoop, there we go. It's just being used at the moment to sniff the marulas and put them back in its mouth. Anna Marie, you're wondering how the marulas germinate through the elephant's dung, or if they can. Well, the elephant's digestive system is not the greatest, but it does manage to wear down the coat that protects, or the skin of the marula, and then it also ferments it through this digestive process. So it helps with the germination and the possible growth of new marula trees whenever the elephant has defecated. However, what's also interesting, because the dung is not or because the marula isn't fully digested, you will also find that other creatures, perhaps like squirrels or birds or smaller animals, they will go into the dung and open it up and start feeding on the marulas. The squirrels particularly go crazy for the nuts that are inside of the marula. And then when they come around and they find it, they obviously start digging it up, and then they take it other places. And sometimes, as the story goes, they will bury them in different places, not knowing where. They forget about them, and that's how some of the marula trees germinate, or where they start growing or dispersing. Now it seems like we've got another beautiful herd of elephants that's slowly going to start approaching this way. And what better way to spend our morning and having our comes back than with elephants? I am, however, going to go a little bit further. Are you going to go into an area that's a little bit more open? Now if you hear that racket, there's some of the birds around us, but let me just go a little bit further onto the road so that we can see the elephants a little bit better. Now I've been trying to catch Daryl on camera just to show you who's the sneaky elephant that's been causing all this trouble, but obviously now that he knows we're onto him, he's not going to show himself anywhere. Which is as expected. Right, beautiful bull. Seems like there are also some wildebeest just on top of the ridge over here. Ah, beautiful. Alright, let me just get on top here, and perhaps we can get these two individuals that are coming this way. Right, so we've got an elephant in front of us, but we've got another two that are coming onto the side and also going to the bottom of the marula tree. As you can see, probably the marula tree is a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for the elephants. It is very, very funny at this time of the year. Find a marula tree and there will be an elephant somewhere nearby. Now it is a very big marula tree, and as you can see, even the elephants look a little bit dwarfed by them, which is unusual. Don't think too many things look bigger when compared to an elephant, but perhaps marulas are the only ones. Now this female walking around here, I would say that she seems a little pregnant, or perhaps not, still the early stages of her pregnancy, but she's got that definite sticking out of the tummy. That it's not only due to the amount of marulas that she's been eating. And it seems like she's a little bit hot as well. Every now and again you'll see she'll flap her ears, probably to get a breeze going on behind. There we go. Just to be able to cool herself down and cool her general body temperature. Now there's a youngster there just behind her. And it's not unsurprising at this time of the year to see elephants that are part of a bigger herd just to disperse for a little bit and just do their own thing in smaller groups. And then during the dry season, when the conditions are a bit harsher, they all come together and move together to and from water especially. Now in your condition, I would assume that you don't really want to be walking all that much. Such a peaceful scene, this one. And it's so nice to have them out in the open for once. I think maybe the boys have been around your marula before, so I'm not too sure how many marulas you're going to get in there. Tiny little tusks starting to stick out, very white and pretty due to the rain. Everything's a little bit cleaner. Walking as you go. Are you guys going to go behind us? Of course you will. Andrew, you're wondering if the elephant's trunk has any cartilage or if it's just muscle. Well, as far as I know, the trunk itself, it's just muscle. There isn't any cartilage there, but I'm not too sure if more towards the head, where the trunk meets the rest of the face, if there could be some cartilage in there. Could be a possibility, but their trunk itself, what they use to sweep up the marulas and the grass and the water, that is mainly muscle. Now, depending the way you look at it, it's believed it's over 100,000 muscles in there, but in general, just 6 main groups of muscle that allow the trunk to go up and down and sideways and to the angles. Now, the elephants are unfortunately going behind us, so we're just going to wait, and perhaps they're going to carry on onto our other side, which it almost seems like they're doing. So let's turn around. James, you're wondering if elephants get boogers in their nose. I would imagine they do. I think it would probably be very complicated for them to try and get them out, but they do have hairs and that help with all the dust and everything else that's going on. But with the constant sucking of water that they do, because they drink water through their nose, or not drink water, but they'll absorb the water through their trunks and then put it in their mouth, I imagine that helps keeping it clean and out of boogers. But that that is a funny thought. I would imagine if they do get them, that they're proportional to size and probably still very big. Having said this, I do remember there are I've been close to elephants before, and maybe Tristan, having been involved with elephant rehabilitation, will be able to give us more of an insight. But I remember stories, and I think somebody was telling me of an experience of elephant sneezing, and then you get all of this slime on top of you. So I would assume that, yeah, definitely. Heading on to the other marula. Seems like the marulas in the middle area of quarantine are the juicy ones, because that's where everybody keeps going. I've got one tree trunk in my way. Michael, you're wondering if elephants will shake marula trees to get the fruit. Yes, I've seen them do that before. Normally, the bigger males are the ones that come and shake the trees when the marulas haven't still dropped their fruit. So you see, marula trees are very clever in the way that they've evolved to do things. So they'll put all the marulas available for everyone. They'll make their fruit available so that it ripens on the ground and not on the tree, so that the elephants don't start breaking the branches, and just for them to have a better dispersal method. Now, elephants can be impatient. So when they are impatient and the marulas haven't started dropping yet, but you can see that they've got a good size on top of the tree, then you'll see them shaking the trees. I might even have a video somewhere that I could share of an elephant shaking marulas here at Djuma. And it was quite funny because he was approaching, and then all they have to do is give it a good shake, and then tons and tons of marulas will actually fall. But I think now they just know that the easiest way to get the marulas is just to sweep them off the ground. I'm so impressed that these marulas have produced as much as they have. Now, let me see. I want to try and see if perhaps there is this video somewhere. But while I find that video, it seems like Tristan has made friends with somebody that's got multiple feet. So let's go and find out who it is.
I have indeed. So I have managed to find Matilda, and Matilda is on a mission. Matilda is also not very good at balancing because Matilda keeps falling. And Matilda's got a friend called Mildred. No, it's not Mildred. It's not Mildred at all. It's Milton. It's her trying to seduce the male, but he's not having any of it. He's curled into a ball. And in fact, he saw her coming and he decided to poo on me, which is not very pleasant at all. So I now not only have sticky marula hands, I have sticky poo marula hands. Delightful, isn't it? But anyway, our millipede is busy doing its thing. You can see it's moving around and trying to go. Now they're both moving, of course they would be. So there is a bit of a beep in the background, which is the drone. I do apologize about that beeping sound. But there we go. There goes our millipedes. You can see they are different colors at the moment. And I'm not sure why this one is different. It's not a different species. We do get a different species called a zebra millipede, but this is not a zebra millipede. Zebra millipedes have white and black stripes, and you can see this fella doesn't. Well, you've got poo on yourself too, Milton. You're not very good at keeping yourself clean. Anyway, you can see why they're called millipedes. Look at them, all the legs that they've got. They obviously don't have millions of legs or thousands of legs. They've got a couple hundred legs on them, and they kind of move around, and they use their antenna to feel their way. They don't really have any eyesight, so to speak. And these guys are detritivores, so basically what they're going after is all kinds of rotting vegetation. Oh no, Milton took a tumble. Milton's not very agile, like I said, but you can see where he pooed on my hands. It's not delightful at all. And there goes, oh, sorry, hold on. Let me get Matilda. Matilda, come this side. There we go. So there's the poo on the hands from Milton. Now Milton's down at the bottom going off on his travels, and then Matilda is busy in the background. So not an ideal start to the morning to be pooed on by a millipede. It's definitely not ideal at all. Now, what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and release Matilda and Milton and let them on their way. And while we do that, we're also probably going to put the drone up in the air and maybe see if we can get some ellies from the drone. And while we do that, let's send you back to Ali, who I believe has got a yellow-billed hornbill.
Well, I don't want to make too much of a noise, but we do. We have a yellow-billed hornbill that is currently feasting on the termites of a termite mound. There were two initially, but I think one of them became very shy, so it hasn't moved around. But look at it. It's definitely going down on this termite mound. Now, on days like today, what could have happened is that some of the workers of the termite mound... Oh, there's a bit of a fight there. Okay. Big holding. And we know who won. Now, as I was saying, on days like today, what can happen is that the termites will actually head onto the openings of the termite mound, the workers, and they will start to close the termite mounds of the main funnels or channels, ventilation systems of the mound to prevent the hot air from going away. Because this particular species of termite that we are looking at the moment that make this mound, they actually need to maintain a temperature of about 32 degrees Celsius for them to grow the fungus that they eat. Now, in order to maintain their temperature, they've got to open and close certain holes or airways just to be able to control it. I think this hornbill has been very clever, and he managed to see that some of them were around here, and I think he's just feeding on either the workers, or he's also starting to feed now on the soldiers. Now, inside of the termite mound, we have different castes of termites. They all have a specific job that they need to do. So the workers are the ones that start building everything and feed the females, or not the females, the queen, and they are the ones that tend to the garden. And then the soldiers are the ones that come along and defend the mound whenever there's some sort of intrusion, which in this case would be the hornbill pretty much eating all of them. Now here's a young hornbill. You can see the beak is not as yellow yet, and it's asking for food. You can hear him begging. Oh, that was not nice. It's your offspring. I think he was also just as destructive as everything else. Rebecca in FC is wondering why it's got a blue eye. I think probably because it doesn't have its full colors yet. You can see the beak is also not as yellow, and normally the youngsters, when they're born, they're a little lighter. So as he gets older, then he's going to start getting his proper yellow eye. I'm surprised that, there's such a greedy parent here, because the youngster is clearly hungry now. It's been told off by the one parent earlier on, and then the second one. And now he's begging for more food. Oop. I don't know if the termites are going even further away, because it seems like the hornbill is actually going in further and further to try and catch them. Are you giving up? Are your parents not giving you food? Shame. Seems like one of your parents is a bit of a fatty and wants them all for itself. Somebody's having a wonderful breakfast. I wish you would just stay there for long enough. Yeah, well done on that close-up sensor. Now all we need is for the hornbill to actually stand still in a place where we can see it, and then maybe we'll be able to see what termite he's eating. Judging by the color, but by what seems to be the size, I think he's eating the soldiers that are probably trying to defend the mound from the intrusion. It does seem like it, just because it's such a much bigger one. Two youngsters and an adult. So maybe it was the two youngsters that were fighting off earlier on just for the right to get some food, because this one is also begging for food. You can hear them. So all young birds make some sort of sound, or just to annoy the parents enough so that the parents will start helping them feed, or will give them food. But I think these two are maybe pushing their luck a little bit, because they seem old enough to be able to try and start fending for themselves. And at least this one's got a bit of an idea of putting his head inside and just trying to get to the juicy part. Or maybe they've just simply worn down the parent with all their noise. Okay, somebody found the pot of gold too. Lots of little things to eat in there. Yeah. Here I was saying ugly things about your parents, and now you're done eating and you're giving it to your youngster. Definitely something in there. It would be quite interesting to see what they were in, and I think I might just wait until they leave to try and see what they're eating. Yvette, you're wondering how we can tell female and male hornbills apart. Now, normally size is a very good indication, and the size of the beak. So males tend to be a little bit bigger, and their beak tends to be a little more prominent than the one of the females. I'm going to try and show you in the book, because that's probably the best way to get an idea. Hornbills, let's see. Nope, the book does not help. It doesn't really give you much of a difference. The easiest way to tell if it's a male or a female likely is just to have a pair of them together, and you will see that the one with the bigger beak, it's almost like they've got an extra casque on the top of their beak, the males, and then the females have a smaller one. I wouldn't be surprised if actually instead of eating and I don't know why I'm only thinking of this now, instead of eating the soldiers or the workers, if they're not eating the alates, because normally the alates are the future kings and queens of the colony, so termites that are destined to become or to start new colonies, and when they do that, they have wings unlike the rest of the termites, and they come out of the termite mounds during or after the rains. So I wouldn't be surprised if actually that's what they're trying to eat, but I see no wings, so that might not be the option. Jamie, you're wondering if hornbills are in any way related to toucans. Well, I would assume that distantly related, yes. And funny enough, the scientific name for the hornbills or the yellow-billed hornbills, I think it's toucans. But definitely there's a toucans in there. But I believe it refers mostly to the noise that the hornbills make. That sounds like tuk 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 tuk. There we go. It's tocus. I got excited and got it wrong. So it's definitely a tocus leucomelas. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are distantly related. They have a similar beak, but just because we're so far away in terms of continents, I don't think that they could be considered cousins. Probably more like cousins twice removed or something along those lines. Seems like Byron's also getting lucky with the birds, so let's head over to him and see who he's making friends with.
I am trying to do some birding. There's actually a lot of birds here at the moment that are flying around. I'm trying to see if I can find them for you. Okay, so what we've got, firstly, just listen to this beautiful call off to my left. I'm sure you will hear it. I'll keep quiet for a second. There we go. I've heard calls again. I think you did hear it the first time. It's now just stopped. It's the beautiful black-crowned shagra that we could hear there. Let me just show you quickly. There's the black-crowned shagra. It's one of my favorite birds in the bush. Just the call. I love hearing them in the morning. Here we go. Beautiful black-crowned shagra, and it has got black on the head, hence the name black-crowned shagra. And then there was another beautiful bird that I doubt, well, I've never been able to get it or show any of you live. It's called a Steeling's wren warbler, and some of you may remember me trying to mimic the sound. I always describe it as a galloping horse, something like that. It's not very good, but it's a beautiful, beautiful bird. And we just saw one, Viam and I just saw one flying around, but very, very difficult to spot. It's a nice image of one there. You see those beautiful barred markings down the body. Steeling's wren warbler. So I saw that now. But there are a lot of, I'll see if we can see them. There are a lot of little blue waxbills and yellow-breasted buntings, golden-breasted buntings, not yellow-breasted, golden-breasted buntings and cinnamon-breasted buntings. And have all been flying in front of us and sitting on the road. I think I see them up ahead. Let's see if we can get a view of them quickly. Yeah, they're all flying in front of us at the moment. Hold on, I'm going to stop shortly. Alright, let's see. Just on the road in front of us, on the left, there we go. There are all these cinnamon-breasted buntings. Beautiful little birds. And there was the odd golden-breasted within that group too, and I saw. Beautiful markings on them. For those facial markings, you could see that clearly, the white and black. The birds all getting very active at the moment. Now, I'm in the area that they saw Thandi and her cub yesterday. Just having a look around. Maybe after the rain, we may have a chance of finding some fresh tracks. So I'm going to have a look very carefully here. While I do that, it sounds like Tristan is with Drone Commander, what shall we call it? Well, Drone Commander Fergus. Let's go see what they're up to.
Indeed we are. Fergus has sent the drone up into the air and found the ellies that I think Ali had just now. So they're busy munching away on the marula fruits, as we've discussed at length this morning already. But it's so beautiful to kind of just see them from up there. They look so peaceful when you kind of looking down on them, just feeding away underneath their trees, and they kind of move from one tree to another. So all of those really big trees that you're seeing on that clearing are marula trees, and some of them obviously will produce fruit and some won't, given that a marula tree can be a male or a female plant. And so a lot of the time we find these trees don't produce fruit. So the one in the far kind of distance on the edge of that intersection of roads, that one there doesn't produce fruit, or I haven't seen it producing any fruit, whereas all the others around it do. You can actually see the ones that do, because it's almost like a trampled area underneath those marula trees where the ellies have walked around and done their thing. So I don't know where the big bull is. That's the female and the little one that's underneath there. And it's interesting how the dynamics of elephants since the marula season has completely changed. Oh, there's the bull over there. He's underneath the tree on the other side. Now, the dynamics between our elephants have really changed in the last few weeks since the marulas have started. We're seeing a lot of bull elephants, which is typical for marula season time. You get a lot of big males that come in, and I suppose that, coupled with the fact that it's been quite dry to our north, has probably meant that we've got a few more males than normal in the area. And what that's meant is a lot of the female herds seem to have disappeared, and the ones that we are seeing are splintered. It seems as though there's only a few in the groupings together, so we're finding a lot of these kind of female calf or female and her immediate family, and very little of the big groupings of females that we normally see. It's been a long time since we've had a herd of 50, 60 elephants together. And so hopefully once the marulas die down, they'll start to come back and we'll find those big herds around again. Hopefully Fang's herd will be back soon. I haven't caught up with her yet since the last time I saw her, which was that dramatic sighting of her on quarantine. In fact, exactly where that male elephant on the right is standing is where I had Fang doing her thing and going around and around the car. So very cool to see them from the air. I always love spending time with the ellies like this. I think it's quite interesting to kind of see them from an aerial perspective, and then we'll kind of come back and you can see just how beautiful the landscape is looking at the moment. So we're going to carry on with our drones, see what else we can find. Also, we're going to scratch around the tent, seeing what else is inside here. And while we do that, let's send you back across to Ali with that incredible sighting of those feeding hornbills.
We do, and it seems like this little hornbill has not stopped eating. Now, I'm waiting patiently, as I would like to go in there and at least take a photograph to show you guys what he's been feeding on. But seems like the food source has constantly kept coming, so it's probably the reason why it doesn't want to go away. So I'm more tempted to think that he's actually eating the soldiers, as they're a little bit bigger than the smaller termites, and we haven't seen any wings, so I doubt it's the alates. And on more than one occasion, it seemed like it's almost going to fall down into the hole and perhaps stay in there. And its other sibling and the parent decided that they had their fill, and they just moved off onto one of the trees in the area. But clearly someone hasn't fed enough, didn't wake up early to get all the food as the other one, so he's still in there. And I mean, it's just amazing the abuse that this termite mound is actually taking from this little hornbill. So many lives trying to protect it, and whoop, he's just going in there, tucking in there to get more and more and more. Now, it's a good way to appreciate all the beautiful spots on their wings and just how cute the little ones look, because they have that proper little toucan look of them, don't they? And just that young, naughty, like the face. Eye patch? I don't think that I can. Why are you crying? You've got all the food, perhaps. Perhaps they're not interested anymore. I love it when birds do that. I don't know if you noticed, but he cannot see sideways because the beak gets in the way. So every now and again you will see that it turns its head or tilts its head to the one side to then be like that to be able to see what's actually in there. It almost seems like it's the soldiers. You're too quick for us. All right, let's see. Yep, there we go. It's gotta be the soldiers in there, because it's the big reddish termites. Probably now it's realized that it's on its own and that the parents are gone somewhere else. Looking onto the side, there's a little bit of mud at the top of its beak. There we go, looking sideways, trying to find more termites in the hole. Seems like you found something else, didn't you? I think now probably they've finished all of the soldiers that could come into this area to protect the termite mound from the raiding of the hornbills, and now seems like the parent is up there, probably came attracted by the distress calls of the little one. Well, maybe not distress calls, but as in like hunger distress calls. It clearly wants some food, and the food is not coming to it anymore. I don't think you've been able to find any more. Perhaps you ate all your fill of termites on this mound for the day. Time to head off somewhere else and start new. It's almost like venting his frustration out. But I'm hungry. I want more termites. Such a beautiful creature. It's very nice to be able to appreciate them from up close. Judging with both eyes, turning into the one side and then the other side to try and see if perhaps there are any termites that he's missed. What could happen though is that there are still more termites coming, and that's what this one is expecting. It's wanting to wait for all the next influx of soldiers that are probably being sent onto this part of the termite mound so that he can feed off them a little bit more. I do think that, however, most of them have either been eaten or they've retreated, or it cannot see them anymore because it hasn't put its beak back in for a while. There we go. Have you left now the site? Can I go and have a look? I'm going to make sure that this little hornbill actually flies away before we go and have a look inside of the mound to see what it is that it was feeding upon, what type of termites. But while I do that, let's head over to Byron, who's off his vehicle.
I am, and we've finally found some fresh tracks, but it doesn't look like they in the direction that we want them to go in. Now have a look here. This is the lion pride. I think the same pride we saw yesterday, and they've been lying in the road over here. It's wonderful tracks. You can see how there's actually, and Via, I'm not sure if you can see clearly, but maybe here, these beautiful tracks over there. A nice track of the lions, and they've walked off. But have a look here. They've actually been lying down on the sand. Now I can tell that this was early this morning, late last night, early this morning, before the rain, because the rain has fallen over these tracks. So these lions were here late last night, or really in the early hours of this morning before the rain. And it looks like they've moved on to Torchwood, unfortunately. But at least we've got fresh signs of these lions. Now we know which direction they went. We were struggling earlier to find tracks of them, but they all lay in the road here. There are tracks everywhere. So the whole pride was together and looks like they've moved off. I just passed one of the other guides, though, that came up from that side, and he said he did see tracks of a female leopard. So that's exciting. And it looks like she did head back onto Djuma. Now the thing is, I think that it is possibly Tandi, that female leopard with the cub, and I haven't seen her for ages, but she was seen yesterday in this area. Remember I said earlier that I was here trying to look for signs of her. So she has been in the area, and I think they saw tracks of her heading back into this area. So we will have a good look around here, and maybe we get a little lucky and find a leopard this morning. That would be very exciting. Let's head back to Tristan, who's still busy with the drone, and now there's some other animals on the clearings above camp.